Welcome back, all you lovely people. I hope you enjoyed Professor Mayer's video. Look, it doesn't have animations and lasers and memes and stuff, but man, I will say, as someone who's studied Aristotle, oh, it's so good. She is so smart. I'm blown away watching this about how just great that video is. So all I'm going to do is I will repeat a few of her points. I'm going to try not to labor too much, but I want to introduce some important aspects about Aristotle and his four causes because I want to connect it to, this natural law theology of Aquinas. And so, as Professor Myers notes, Aristotle believes that there are rational explanations in both morality and in nature. And in particular, we could say that Aristotle adopts what we can call a teleological approach, And a teleological, let's say it so many times, a teleological approach is which you explain a thing in terms of its purpose, goals, or ends. And as Professor Mayers notes, this is, from the Greek word telos, which does mean end or purpose. And so teleology, the study of ends, purposes. And again, a teleological approach will study a thing based on, what is it for? What's its end? What's its purpose? Because Aristotle thinks this is how we truly come to understand something. I mean, you look at a person's behavior, and the best way to understand a person's behavior is to think, well, why did the person do what they were doing? You see a person eating an orange, you could say, why is the person eating an orange? And her purpose was to not be hungry, or the orange tasted good. That was the purpose behind it. And for those in computer science, you all know that, look, if you want to understand a computer program, you have to understand its purpose. What is the purpose? You cannot understand a computer program if you don't know what is it for? And this pretty much applies to anything made by humans. What is it for? That's how we truly understand it. If you want to understand a table, you need to know what is a table for, and that will then explain why it has the size or shape or material or structure or whatever that the table has. Now, Aristotle's teleological approach is quite interesting because it's not only, as Professor Mayer says, this isn't only about natural things. This isn't only about man-made things. It's also about natural things, about everything, according to Aristotle, can be understood teleologically as through understanding its purpose. And indeed, that's what Aristotle says in the reading from the Physics, that to truly understand something, a practice, a thing, an activity, he even says an argument, right? To understand any of this, you have to know the why of it. The telos, the aitia, as Professor Meyer says again, you got to remember our Greek, aitia, why, explanation, or I love calling them because. And that's how we can then truly understand why a thing exists, or whatever it is, activity, practice, whatever, why it exists, why it's occurring. And so we need an explanation that explains really what is it. And according to Aristotle, that's what these four whys are that Professor Mayers talks about. And I think she does a great job of explaining these. So one thing I will add to this, however, is that, and Mayers says this at the end, but I'm going to start with the final cause, because Aristotle says the why, the biggest why, the most important why is the final cause. We got to answer the question, what is it for? That, Aristotle says, will reveal the purpose of why the thing exists. And Aristotle really believes you do not truly understand a thing unless you know its purpose. What is it for? And as I'll talk about in a moment, all the other causes, the other three, all are meaningful to the extent they're somehow involved in serving that purpose, that why is it? What is it for? Form, material, maker, all of these are supposed to work towards that purpose, to that telos, to that final cause, whatever that final cause or purpose may be. And as Susan Mayers, I said this before, she says this holds for human-made things and for natural things. All are for a purpose. And so here we see Aristotle then setting up the first element of the natural law tradition. Nature acts for a purpose. And as Professor Mayer notes, Aristotle believes that the final cause is the end and the good. She doesn't dwell on that. We will, because this is a class on ethics. We care about not only the end, but that the end is the good, as Aristotle says, because we judge a thing by how well it fulfills its purpose. Take a pair of scissors. You can immediately think, well, what is a pair of scissors for? What is its purpose? Well, that's easy. The purpose of a scissors is to cut things. So what makes then a pair of scissors a good pair of scissors? Well, I hope that's an easy question too. A good pair of scissors cuts things without any problems. And notice what we just did. We said a good pair of scissors is a pair of scissors that fulfills its purpose. Its final cause is the end and the good, because that tells us how to evaluate it. But Aristotle says not only can we do these things like scissors and other, things made by humans, human artifacts, we can do this with natural things. So go back to the orange. We could ask, what is an orange for? And Aristotle would probably say something along the lines of, an orange is for consumption and sustenance. Pretty simple purpose there. Now, it might be strange to think about oranges having a purpose of sustenance and consumption, but Aristotle thinks, look, we do this all the time, even probably without even thinking about it. Because after all, it's not strange to ask, what makes an orange a good orange? You say to your friend eating the orange, is that a good orange? It makes sense. And your friend, if you said, is this, then agrees, yes, this is a good orange. It tastes good and it's giving me nourishment, vitamin C, whatever. The answer to what, is that a good orange? You're already kind of talking about, Aristotle would say, the purpose, the end. And so basically when you say, yeah, the orange tastes good and it's filling me up, I'm not hungry or whatever anymore. Yeah, you're basically saying a good orange is fit for human consumption and sustenance. And now you're talking about the purpose of an orange, to consume and sustain us. And so now we're seeing, though, how Aristotle is starting to set up that second part of the natural law tradition, that what is natural is good. Again, the telos, the purpose. Nature has that purpose, and that is the end and the good. And so what is natural? What is fulfilling its purpose? That is good. And so when we're looking at natural things, we can say if it's fulfilling its purpose well, it is good. If the orange tastes good, that's a good orange, right? But if it tastes bad and is rotten, bad orange, bad orange. And you say the orange is bad and you throw it in the trash. And look, Aristotle does believe things can go wrong in nature. It's never going to be perfect. Oranges will rot, but that's why we call it a bad orange. It's not fulfilling its purpose. And so finally, we see that Aristotle is saying that the student of nature seeks knowledge. And this knowledge is found by studying those four causes, probably starting with the final cause. What is it for? But now we're seeing Aristotle set up that third element. I remember I mentioned 3 elements to natural law, and Aristotle's now setting up the third part. He's done the previous 2. He said nature acts for a purpose. He has said that what is natural is good. And now we're getting the third, what reason can come to understand nature and its laws. And that's what the whole idea of the 4 causes is for. The student of nature is able to learn these things and figure it out. So let's use our reason as a simple example. Professor Mayer gives a lot of natural examples, the dog, or the donkey, the acorn. And so I think you can understand how this works. So I'll pick a human artifact, the statue of Abraham Lincoln in Washington, D.C., and I'll just walk through this. Some of it I'll do quick because I think she explains it well. Others I might pause for a moment just to dig a little deeper because, I think this will help illustrate how Aristotle's approaching things. So the statue of Abraham Lincoln in Washington, D.C. I assume many of you have seen this, if not in person, in pictures. Now, Aristotle, of course, says you do not understand it. We do not understand this statue until we know its 4 causes or the 4 explanations or the 4 causes, whatever you want. And as I mentioned, I think it's better to start with the final cause as the most important for Aristotle. So we'll start there. We'll ask, what is the statue for? And again, this is so that we may understand the purpose for why this thing exists. So what is the statue of Abraham Lincoln for? What is its purpose? Well, I guess we'd say it's supposed to honor Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States. But it's more than just to honor this guy, this man, this person. It is supposed to honor the man's great achievements, such as his role in ending slavery and emancipation, and maybe preserving the Union, whatever. He did a lot of great stuff. And so its purpose isn't just to honor the man, but to recognize his great achievements for the country. So that's what it's for. Now we can move to the formal cause, which we're asking, what is it? So now what is this statue of Abraham Lincoln? Well, I think the question just answered itself. The general answer is, it is a statue. I just told you. What is the statue of Abraham Lincoln? Well, it's a statue. Oh, okay. Interesting. And a more specific of what is it could be, it is a statue of Abraham Lincoln. And you're like, okay. And I worry that this is what Professor Myers does, but I'll say, she might be oversimplifying the formal cause just a little bit, because I would think the word form or shape is also having meaning here, because the formal cause does include those elements of what we might call the shape or the form. And so we can understand the formal cause to be, I think, better understood as the organization or structure of the thing required in achieving its purpose. So the statue of Abraham Lincoln is supposed to honor the man and his achievements, but what organization or structure does this require? Well, the statue should probably look like Abraham Lincoln and not someone else. And also, given the importance of the actions of Abraham Lincoln, the statue, maybe it should be made huge just to show how outsized and nearly superhuman maybe what he did for this country was. And there's probably more things we could look at about why is he sitting as opposed to standing, and all sorts of stuff we could look into. But again, the idea of the causes is, after you've had the final cause, how are the others fulfilling this purpose? And so when we talk about the formal cause, we're seeing that, well, whatever it is we're doing has to have a certain structure or organization to help fulfill that purpose. Scissors need a certain shape in order to cut. They can't be flat and dull. They have to be sharp to cut. And so, yes, to achieve the scissors purpose, we need a certain shape or structure. But similarly, for the statue of Abraham Lincoln, if the goal is to honor the man and his oversized achievements, if you will, then we need to create an aesthetic that does this with the statue. So it's not simply enough to say that the form is a statue or of a statue of Lincoln. It's got to be something about the structure as a statue to honor the man. Now we can go to the material cause. This one's a little more easy because there's not much to say here. This is just where we ask, what is it made of? What is it from? And here we want to know the material, substance, or components employed that allow the thing to achieve its purpose. And so in the case of the statue of Abraham Lincoln, we can ask, well, what is it made of? Well, it's made of marble, if you didn't know, and its marble will last a long time. And so indeed, that's probably helpful for the purpose of honoring the man. But we can even dig a little deeper. It's not just any marble. This marble is from Georgia. And so the idea of bringing material from the South and building the statue was to illustrate how Lincoln brought the South back into the United States. And so again, so even the material is fulfilling the purpose in a very subtle way that you might not have even known about. But again, it's all going back to honoring the man and the man's achievements. So marble honors the man because it's durable and it's nice. It's aesthetically pleasing. But also it's marble from the South, and that's very symbolic given Lincoln's role in keeping the South as part of the Union of the United States. Okay, so finally then we have the efficient cause, where we can ask what made it, what produced it. And here we're looking at the primary source organizing the material so that the thing achieves its purpose. Mayers calls this the mover or the maker. It's great, I love it. Now the efficient cause is important because it's what's connecting the other causes together. That is, the efficient cause transforms the material by putting the form into it. So we're taking the material cause, we're putting the formal cause into it, and then we're doing all that because the result must achieve the purpose or the final cause. So it puts them all together. It's really cool, right? The maker, the mover, moves the material so that it, not literally, but somehow organizes the material so that it takes upon a certain form that then allows it to do whatever it's supposed to do. And so in the case of the statue of Lincoln, we can ask who made it. And I can tell you, I looked this up. The statue was designed by Daniel Chester French but actually I'll pause. Aristotle says we can go further than that. Mayer just stops with the creator, she would say the statue maker, in this case, Daniel Chester French. But Aristotle thinks we can actually dig deeper about the efficient cause because we can think about what really made or created or put this statue together. And Aristotle would actually say it's not simply the person, it's actually the art of sculpture or the art of statue making, whatever you want to call it. A person, after all, is just a person, whereas the art of sculpture, that is absolutely necessary in this process as an efficient cause of making it. So what truly made it wasn't the person, it was the art of statue making, which is pretty cool, the art of sculpting. Because it's the art of sculpting that transforms this Georgian marble by putting the form into it. That is the physical form of Lincoln, along with, say, some kind of conceptual or aesthetic form of Lincoln as a huge person of great importance. So again, the art of sculpting transforms the material, the marble, by putting the form of Lincoln and his achievements into it and allowing the result, this organization of material, to achieve the purpose, and in this case of honoring the man and his great accomplishments. Again, the artist Daniel Chester French is just the vehicle for the art of sculpting. So the true efficient cause here is the art of sculpting and statue making. And so that's the analysis of this using the 4 causes on this statue of Lincoln. And now we can ask, and hopefully this question is not too hard to answer now that we've done all that analysis, we can ask, what makes it good? What makes this statue good? Or we might just ask, is this any good? And well, I'll leave that to you to decide if you've seen this. I mean, I would say visit it because it's pretty impressive to say the least. But I'll let you decide if the statue is fulfilling its purpose in honoring Lincoln and his accomplishments. I'll let you decide that. But in any case, I hope that by applying this doctrine of the 4 causes to the statue, you have a sense of how it works and how we'll see in the next video in a moment. I'll come back to in a sec, how that's going to start applying to natural things and not just human artifacts. But again, I hope you're starting to see how Aristotle is laying this foundation for the natural law tradition. Namely, again, 3 things we've seen Aristotle talking about here with the natural law tradition. Number 1, nature acts for a purpose. Number 2, what is natural is good. Number 3, reason can come to understand nature and its laws. I used our reason on the statue, but Aristotle would say, yeah, you just do the same process with natural things. It might be a little trickier because we don't have human intervention, but he thinks we can figure it out. And Professor Mayer's video talks about that. But again, it's all the same. And so the big claim, though, here that might be one that needs more explanation is, how does nature act for a purpose? Now, the idea that nature acts for a purpose is known as natural teleology. Natural teleology, the idea that nature acts for a purpose, or at least the things in nature act to fulfill, each of them, some purpose. Now, for this, I'll turn things back over to Professor Mayer. She's going to talk a bit about how to understand Aristotle's account of natural theology and and very importantly, how Aristotle justifies that. Then I'll come back and we'll wrap up the discussion of Aristotle and and then begin the transition to Thomas Aquinas, where things are going to get pretty wild too. But go say hi to Susan for me, and I'll see you back here in a bit.